Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This video is going to be month 3 or part 3 of my stop motion animation project. If you want to see the beginning of this process, check out part 1 and part 2. I'll leave the links down below. And it was a lot of work, so without further ado, let's get started. So it's month 3 of this animation project. And I'm not sure what I want to work on. I don't know if I want to work on the background or if I want to continue planning out the birds and stuff. So I'm going to put up a poll on Patreon and Instagram and YouTube to see what you guys want me to work on. I put up the poll yesterday and background work won, so I'm going to work on cutting out the layers of the background. Since you guys voted for background work, I went and I separated all of the plants onto separate layers just so I could have a clear view of what will be on what layer, and I numbered them all just to make it clear. I had a few issues with some layers that I cut before that I will get into later, but for now they just kind of fell apart. I wasn't sure at this point how many layers I wanted to make, but I thought I'd finish up near the background. So I decided to just make a few and then see how much I felt like doing. So I decided to do this layer that hides the edge of the water, and it has one of the dilapidated aqueducts in the background. And I just cut this out of the cardstock and I added details out of sketching paper. On day 2, I went back and fixed the layers that I had issues with. This tracing paper that I'm using somehow doesn't hold the glue at all, it just falls apart completely. All of the water just doesn't want to hold. The parchment paper doesn't stick. Like, you glue it down, it dries fine, but then it just comes right back off. So I went and I fixed all of the layers that had that issue from previous months, but then I continued working on more layers. I continued throughout the next few days just working on all of the vegetation. Before we continue, I wanted to let you know that I have a Patreon page with a bunch of behind the scenes content. I have templates, I have Lightbox, I have animation updates, I have some videos. If you want to support me over there, please check it out. The link will be down below. Now back to the video. I decided to use cardstock and tracing paper. I was a little worried about the contrast of using cardstock and tracing paper because I thought maybe it would be too much, but we'll see how it turns out. I think it'll be good, but there's always a little doubt sometimes when you don't know. And I wanted to add shading to all of these leaves, just to add a little more depth. So I did that to all of them. This process was pretty repetitive. I'm just basically recreating what you see in the digital sketch, just out of paper. I thoroughly enjoyed this process. It was super fun, and I spent like a week and a half on this and it was really fun. But after a while I got a little sick of it and my hand was hurting from all the cutting, so I took a break, and on day 8 I decided that I wanted to animate some of the plants moving to give this more life. And at first I wanted to make some of the leaves opening and closing, but I thought that it would be too distracting and too much, so instead I just redrew the same frame over and over, and I didn't get it perfect because, you know, I was freehanding it, and then it created this little jittery effect. So I basically kept that in mind, and I will come back to it later. The rest of this month I just kept cutting layers. I ended up deciding to do all of the layers because why not get it over with, and I was in the flow of it. So that's what I did. I just cut the layers, traced out all the details. For the flowers that are going to be moving, I'm not drawing and cutting out the flowers attached. I'm adding them separately. You will see that later. But yeah, I work through all the layers, adding tracing paper, cardstock wherever I need it, and slowly building it up. I also add foam board around the edge of each layer to hold it all together. I'm trying to create a really interesting world for this cyborg character, and I think this animation and my previous one kind of fit together because they're both watery, and I had this idea that maybe this world is full of like vicious birds that want to like kill and eat people because they're their prey, so the humans adapted and they created robotic birds to like blend in and to combat the real birds. But then something went wrong, something happened, and then the whole world fell apart and the birds are running rampant. But I don't know. I'll come back to the idea, it was just a thought. By day 15, I was having a little bit enough of cutting, so I decided to do some more animating. I started on the birds swooping in to attack the robot, and I was so excited to start on this. I loved the swirl that I did to make them fly in, because they leave the frame and then they loop back in and they start attacking. I had these frames for the birds flying. Originally they were going to go across the background, but I decided to use them for these birds flying across. So I copy pasted that and I could get the movement pretty down. And then I did a rough little take of them taking off as well. And I will finish this up next month. I decided after this to go back and do the animating leaves. So basically what I did here was take my drawing, trace the leaves that I needed, and then I traced them onto cardstock. Basically because I'm not perfect, they're all gonna be slightly different. So when I put in the animation, there's gonna be some leaves that are kind of moving. And I'm hoping it'll look close enough that it'll be smooth and not too much, because this is what happened in my previous video with the birds snoring, that I barely cut differently, but the movement was so extreme. So I'm trying to be really careful and making them as close as possible so that there's not too much jumpiness. And since I finished all the layers, I decided to film the finished layers as well. This is my setup for filming each layer, and it's pretty rough, but it'll do for now. So basically, the only part I disliked about the previous animation was that each layer was blurry except the one that the camera focused on. And I want to fix that because I don't like that all of my hard work just looks blurry. And this light box, if I would take a picture of it, it's like 15 inches deep. It wouldn't work out. So I'm gonna try to take a picture of every single layer and then digitally put it all together. So that's what I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try a few different methods and see which one I like the best. But yeah, this is the setup. And then I have my camera off this way. So I went and I took a picture of each layer, and then I took a picture of the light box as a whole, and I took pictures of each of the leaves against the backdrop. And then I put it all together in my program, and here is the finished look. I will say that there's something off about it. First of all the values are the same. In a light box, the front is dark and the back is light because as the paper layers, it gets darker. And this has none of that. So I decided to digitally try to edit it by taking the layers and adjusting the brightness and exposure, you know, making them match more of the light box look. And it kind of looked good, but I'm not quite done with it yet. I'm not sure if I love it fully. I expected to like it a lot more than I actually do. So I'll come back to this next month and see what I can do. But yeah, that was it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you want to see more of this animation process, check out previous videos. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!